Hello, and welcome to the Neurodiverse Collaborative podcast, where we share voices, stories, and ideas from the neurodiverse community. I'm your host, Jill Triffo, and in each episode, we explore collaboration, creativity, and the amazing things happening in our community. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about the dad perspective with Dale Fairclough and John Scott.
My name is John Scott. Professionally, I am a project manager, systems technology, and business analyst. A lot of my work is about making complicated, ambiguous ideas and topics more understandable and more useful for people. I help people integrate with technology and bring new initiatives for my organization from idea to production. At home, I'm a husband and dad. One of the biggest parts of my life has been learning how to support and advocate for my neurodivergent children. I have 3 children at home, and the entire household is neurodivergent. That journey has shaped how I parent, how I think about systems, and how I see people. Happy to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you. Dale, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, Jill. So I'm Dale Fairclough. I'm founder of Achieve Coaching and Consulting. I help technical leaders and other professionals make confident, strategic decisions and transitions in their careers and in emerging businesses. I have a real passion for helping people move from stuck to strategic. And I bring the structure of my engineering background to the work I do with people. So I have 2 adult sons. The youngest, who is now 21, is on the autism spectrum. So my wife and I have been on this journey together day by day with our son and the support of our families and professionals. So my perspective since my son was diagnosed has been heavily shaped by being a parent of a neurodivergent child, and of course managing the demands of career and life and everything. So it's not been easy, but my son has done his part outstandingly, and it's really given me a strong, deep appreciation for the issues that individuals and families face.
Awesome. Thank you. So when did you first realize your child was neurodivergent, and what was that experience like for you? I guess we can start with John. No.
Well, first I want to say I like Dale, how you said you have 2 adult sons. I have an adult daughter who has ADHD and 2 teens, boys who are on the autism spectrum and have ADHD. And I don't think I realized that they were, I always knew they were special. I'm their dad, right? But it was really early in elementary school for me when, we got some reports from school. Child moves around a lot, disruptive to the classroom, seems to react strongly to change. You need to repeat first grade, things like that. And I had some really great teacher advocates who pulled me aside and said, listen, we got to do a little bit more testing and figure out how to support your child the best. And as a parent, I was like, great. I want to support my child the best as well. So, and then early on, ADHD was very sort of relevant in that case in elementary school. And the autism diagnosis happened then mid-elementary school for me. And wasn't necessarily a shocker, but definitely changed life. It changed my role as a father because I had to turn from just a standard, sort of what I thought of as a disciplinarian and a provider, and had to turn into being an advocate, a translator, coach, sometimes a shield, and learn how to communicate differently, both with my family, now the family in my house and my family outside of my house, and providers in school, because there's so many different opinions of what being on the spectrum means, and high functioning, low functioning, all these different labels that we put on that may or may not really be relevant. So I always needed to slow down and ask, what is really happening here? Instead of just reacting to what's on the surface. So I had to parent the child in front of me, not what I had imagined what parenting was going to be.
Yes, that's a good point.
That's
Kids always have a tendency of doing the opposite of what we expect.
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Right. So, Dale, when did you first realize your child was neurodivergent, and what was that experience like for you?
Sure. So my son was diagnosed at a few months before his third birthday. But before that, at around, I'd say 2 years old, we started to have some real concerns about his development, speech, behaviors, not wanting to be held. Like you'd hold him, he'd squirm away. He didn't want anybody to hold him like a typical child would. And so early in that period, my wife's uncle, may he be resting well right now, mentioned a condition called autism, which I did not have high familiarity with at that time. So we approached this pediatrician with questions, and his doctor at that point was not yet convinced that my son had autism, but he did acknowledge his delays, and so he helped us get early intervention, which was the right first step. Um, but back then there was, and I'm not sure if that is still the case, but back then there was limited availability with the neurodevelopment pediatrician in this area, so we actually had to go out to Geisinger in Danville to
Okay.
get evaluation and diagnosis. So, ahead of that visit, I was doing a lot of research and looking at all kinds of things, just reading as much as possible, and I actually came to that conclusion that we would be hearing this diagnosis. So, my wife and I were prepared, and we accepted, that yeah, my son has this condition, and started to prepare for whatever was to come next. And John, you hit on a lot of good points. Support, not reactive, not having set expectations, and so that has evolved over many years.
We did also get some good supports in daycare before we had a diagnosis from the IU, and some of the daycare teachers helping identify things like speech, delayed speech, or processing directions. But no one ever labeled it, right? So it wasn't until later. I'm impressed with your knowledge around the dates, and I maybe should have some more of that information. I think it's relevant.
Yeah,
It's good.
my wife actually she wrote a chapter of a book, so that's my reminder of what actually took place. So
Oh, nice.
I cheated a little.
That's okay. You used the resource.
Yeah.
Yes, and I know, like you mentioned, that having to go outside of the area of the Lehigh Valley to get a diagnosis and to get more information, and like that was almost 20 years ago when that was the case, and it's pretty consistent today too. I mean, it's very limited as far as the resources that we have, even though this area has grown so much too.
Yeah.
Um, is there anything that either of you had wished that someone had told you early on that you kind of found out on your own, that nobody told you or warned you about maybe?
I would say for me, it's like the fight to be understood. Uh, uh, like you have this expectation that your child is going to be understood and receive the right support, and that you're going to get the best information. And one thing that I wish someone would have told me early on to set my expectations better would be that I had to do a lot of fighting. And when I mean fighting, I don't mean like mean. I mean more like, again, advocacy. I got to ask a lot of questions, read books on my own, talk to other parents, call Jill. Like,
Mhm.
it wasn't like people were like, here's the information, here's everything you need, here's the playbook in a business world. Like, it was like, you got to figure it out. And there wasn't a huge amount of forthright knowledge sharing available, or guidance. The other thing also was like this like idea where almost like people thought of your situation as bad or less. And you grieve a little because you're like, my child is meeting the expectations that fit them. Just not, and you look at, I remember 2020, they'd be on Zoom elementary school, and and a lot of the kids in the elementary Zoom calls would be like sitting still, hands like this, writing their notes. And my kid's like, yeah. And it was like, oh, so I wish someone would have told me, you don't need all the answers right away. You just need to keep showing up,
Mhm.
keep learning, and keep believing in yourself and your child.
Yeah, I love that, John. For me, starting with acceptance, right? Just basic accepting your child and accepting your situation as it is, having patience. I think those two things, we're not, dads may not always be aligned with accepting things and patience, and so it changes the dynamic that we need to have. And being consistent, of course, is important, and simply being focused on what is best for your child and your family as a whole, and everyone, the other children involved, your partner, if you have one, and to strike the right balance and figure out how you can grow as a unit, and not worry about the expectations or things outside of that. It's you, your child, your unit that's important. Everything else is really, you know, noise for the most part. So finding the right balance, and making sure that you can take care of yourself a little bit too in that mix, and find some ways to do something for yourself, and your partner could do something for themselves, and the whole unit can work, and live this life that we have. Yeah.
So, what has been the most challenging aspect of advocating for your child within the existing systems, like school, medical, other services?
Switch it up and Dale go first.
Yeah, I can. So it's, school at some point has had its challenges, of course. I feel like, we were all trying to figure out how to create the best situation for my son, so that he could get his education and enjoy the experience as much as possible. And I think as soon as we realized that they didn't always have, the professionals and teachers didn't always have the answers, it was actually more of a relief, because then we could work more collaboratively, to towards the best outcome. And yes, I'm not saying it was always easy. It was tough at times, but having more of a positive approach to working together has, I believe, been a benefit for my son overall. It doesn't mean we had to have some tough conversations at times and push where needed, but the approach to me should always be one of being more positive rather than being abrasive or intimidating if that didn't help the situation. So that was something that worked, I'd say, well for us, for the most part.
I think as like a parent or parents working together, um, you become like the case manager. You're tracking school meetings, services, evaluations. You're trying to fill these long IDOS forms out, doctor's appointments, finding doctors that can help you. Getting a pediatric doctor, we actually got one then during COVID, and having autism diagnosis meetings over Zoom, or like maybe not diagnosis, but ongoing kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just anything. You're overwhelmed in the evening, but you need to send emails, you need to track behaviors, and then trying to get other people to do those things consistently to give you feedback outside the phone, outside the home, not phone. And like, so even like getting state assistance for insurance. Again, there was no checklist. There's no one in the system owns the whole picture, and the parent has to hold all of it, or the parent unit.
Yeah.
And like having little aha moments later, like 6 years later, you realize how important therapy is, and finding the right therapist, and how important it is going to IEP meetings prepared with what your expectations are going to be, but then having to follow up over and over again, and balancing that with work and life. The advocacy is, I think, something that's just been really difficult.
Yeah.
The emotional weight is hard too.
Yes.
So a lot of times it feels like you're trying to convince people to treat your child with dignity and to get a fair chance for them.
Mhm. You mentioned case manager, Don, and yeah, I totally agree with that. That idea that you are the case manager. You're seeing the whole thing, pretty much their whole life, every day. And for my sports fans, you're the quarterback, you and your partner and your unit, of this thing. And so you're seeing the whole field. And in a lot of cases, it's really up to you to help connect and to make sure that things are consistent between school and the therapies and activities and what you're doing at home as well, and the things that are working or that you're learning along the way. So yeah, that was a great way to look at it.
I always think that OT is a great example because a lot of times in the IEPs, you only get like 15 minutes of OT a month. And I'm always just like, how is that enough? like 15 minutes a day? Everyone's like, well, that's the sort of the block, the template, let's call it, that's used for support. And well, maybe the template isn't right.
Yeah.
The locker still looks like it looks, and the handwriting is still really difficult as examples. And I also just cannot say enough about moms and how, as a dad, a lot of times you take on certain roles. And without my children's moms, I would have been even further lost in connecting all the dots. And a lot of times I was showing up and providing support. And a lot of research and emailing and phone conversations and reading was happening, and I was being informed and supported in that way. So having support of other people has been really crucial.
Yeah. Yes, learning how to follow sometimes and to just be a support and to take, humble yourself and take direction and fill your role in a different way. So yes, the same thing like with my wife, she would take on certain roles and certain leadership and things and be the front person, and I would do my part. And other times though the role might be reversed. I would be the person taking on certain things, and she would support. So in any event, it has to be whatever your unit looks like, whatever your support looks like. It's collaboration, it's working together, it's knowing that you may not have all the ideas and answers, but working together to try new things and to see how you can make the best situation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree though. That support role definitely sometimes has a big impact on the tone of those meetings too. If it's just a single parent by themselves versus two parents or a parent and an advocate, like just coming as a united front to that type of a meeting, definitely the tone shifts a little bit more.
Yes, agree with you. And me naturally I'm more of I'd say a quiet person. Like I'm more reserved, so I'll listen a lot. But then yes, you hear things at certain points, and you gotta step in and make your voice heard because you're an advocate. John's word, advocacy. It's that's your role as a parent. And Jill, you hit it on the head. If you have two people, they can support each other. One person may speak up, and the other is there to support. So
taking notes. Yes. All right. So as project managers, you're both experienced in building and working within a structured system. Has that background helped you guys navigate these processes, or has it created its own frustrations when the systems don't function the way that they should?
Go ahead, John. I'll let you.
Well, I'd say that project management it's really awesome. You get to take something from an idea and make it happen. And I'd say it definitely has helped me. And I've been studying project management since 2011. And actually that was a year my youngest son was born. And, with this role of being a dad of neurodivergent children and having services and therapy and doctor's appointments and reading and education and crying and laughing and collaboration and lots of patience and lots of connection with your child and your family is you got to document. You need that documentation in order to be smart, to sometimes prove to people what you're saying is true. I remember we did tracking at the middle school for my daughter, and they had to provide a weekly report to her psychiatrist, and then following up and going to meetings and paying attention to timelines and action items and deadlines, and also escalating And so project management has helped me organize information and pushing process forward. I keep written over here on my whiteboard, keep it moving. Because that's my role as the project manager a lot of the times is I might not be the subject matter expert. I'm definitely not the sponsor all the time. I might also be a stakeholder, but not always. But it is my job to keep pushing the process forward, documenting, encouraging in collaboration, communication, decision making, looking at the critical path. I know I need to get my child enrolled in this service by this date, and this is the longest part. So project management using critical path methods has helped me so that I can then work backwards. And having ADHD myself, I got to stay organized. So yeah, I would say that project management is a great tool and definitely helps you in your personal life.
Yeah, agreed. You put it so well. Timelines, yes, timelines, tasks, knowing what all the tasks are and putting them on a timeline. And that being able to do that has allowed me to be patient because I can at least, be in a conversation and be in a situation and know that if you establish a timeline, establish a plan, and you follow it, you can relax a little bit as long as you're doing what you need to do and you're following up on those action items and making sure that you flag when things need to be done so that you're not as scattered. Organization is key, no matter what. Just being organized. It could be as simple as having folders that you put things in and are able to file, your IEP documents in a folder and other important things. And electronically now, you could, set up your electronic storage. So at least that part, staying organized, staying on timelines, and keeping up with things is helpful.
Dale, would you also say that sort of as a project manager, sometimes you have to learn about things that you might not be an expert at?
Absolutely, every day. And so I tell people, I'm happy to tell people I don't know everything, but what I will do is learn about it as much as I can. So being an avid learner, and you have to learn, right? You have to learn and you have to distill that information in a timely fashion so you can take an action with it. So I believe that's another critical skill as well.
I think as a project manager, sometimes you get a project where you're not the subject matter expert. You might not even understand the industry, and you have to go out and study that information in order to be able to be a good project manager. I brought up a state-run program, and I had to read 600 pages of state compliance documentation. I'm going to compare that to a reevaluation. I've had to read 4,000 page, exaggerating a little, reevaluation documentation. And this piece applies to this piece and that piece applies to this piece. And if you have to read it, it's emotional. They're talking about your child, but you have to be professional, almost put a professional hat on and be like, I'm going to read this to understand it so I can be prepared.
Absolutely.
I like what you said about patience too, because it's like you have to teach yourself a different type of patience. It's not the soft, easy kind of patience.
Yeah.
It's kind of patience where you keep coming back. You keep repairing, you keep trying again, you keep learning after you got it wrong.
Right.
Coupled with the patience in your household that you need to just live is a different type of patience. So I really like that you said that about patience because, in project management, you also have to be very patient because you might be bringing 10 people to a table to do this X thing. They have different perspectives. They learn different way. They have different interests. They're driven by different things. Some people read emails. Some people don't. Some people prepare in advance. Some people don't. And this is almost identical to what happens when you go into some of these other circumstances. I'm like, okay, I've emailed the same exact packet of information now to the fifth person. Like there should be a portal. I could just upload it. Here's the link.
Yes.
Now there is, of course, OneDrive and all that.
A lot of patience, but at the same time, you're hitting on something there, John, where with people, certain folks, you get to know who's slacking or who's not really doing what they're supposed to do. So you can have patience to a certain point, but yeah, you've got to be able to say, hey, this isn't right. This person isn't, or this function isn't happening the way it should, and know that you got to step in and really push. And now that's where the tougher side has to really come out, and for your child, for your loved one, and their benefit, it has to. So
awesome. It sounds like every family needs a project manager at this point.
yeah, of course.
Because a lot of parents or caregivers don't have that that set of skills to be able to organize and collect and hold people accountable. But it's a great skill set.
Yes. And if I may add one thing, when we were doing the IEP meetings initially, we weren't, I don't think we were as effective as we could be because we didn't have actions and, certain harder, more solid things in there. So we did get an advocate that was able to help us with that. And I learned from that experience. So that's another example of learning how to do something a little more effectively. And I carried that through the future meetings and helped quite a bit. So get help where you need it. That's the other important thing I would advise.
Yes, like know your own limitations. Yes. All right. So how has your experience or perspective shaped the way you parent your child and advocate for your child?
That's a lot on that one. And I'll just go with my sort of thought process here is that it's not just about the child, it's about people around the child for me. It's not, I had to be more aware that people are not always being difficult on purpose. And your child included in that. It might look like difficult, right? I think that sometimes you have to recognize, slow down, and say, even though you might also be overwhelmed, misunderstood, anxious, overstimulated, or just plain old missing a skill. So for me, it's changed how I respond, and not just to my child or to providers in life. I try to look for the need underneath the behavior. Sometimes communication isn't as simple as, I need a bowl of cereal, I'm hungry. It might look like, I'm going to throw my toy across the house, or I'm going to run outside, or I'm going to not listen, or whatever it might be. The provider is not going to provide a solution. So look at the behavior for communication. So what I like to do now is I just really like to be observant of people's behavior and then use that as a clue to how I should act and react. And is it communication? So yeah. I would also say patience. And lastly, I'd say that, maybe not lastly, but for now, you have to be both strong and emotional. You have to be you're expected to be the calm problem solver and supporter. But this journey brings up fear, frustration, guilt, pride, grief, joy. I'm talking to Dale and you here now today. It feels like dads need more spaces where they can talk about this honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I love that you guys are here today talking about it, because it's a lot of the conversations are around the moms and the moms' perspectives and all of the coordination and things that go into it. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely that needed perspective that we need to understand, like that dad perspective too. Because you guys process information differently too. And it's a different sort of complement to what moms do. Different type of support. But yeah, I know dads don't typically talk about the emotional aspect also.
Yes. The emotional aspect is it is it's a lot, and John, you hit it on the head. There's all kinds of emotions, right? And I think allowing yourself to be in touch with how you really feel is very important. And realizing that you need to take time to learn your child, know your child, observe them. What are their interests? What motivates them? What their strengths are? Because everyone has strengths, right? And we should be working to leverage those where we can. Know what they really dislike or what triggers them, and not forcing things. Like we don't have to force something that really doesn't fit. Work towards what actually works and what's better for that child. And sometimes just being quiet, observing, as you mentioned, and then putting something together and moving forward at that point, not being reactive and instinctive, taking a little step to think first, or to let it be. Just let it be. Some things just need to be for a minute,
Yes, patience. All right. So in terms of the Neurodiverse Collaborative, what do you guys hope that the Neurodiverse Collaborative can provide families navigating these kinds of challenges?
Can I just say one more thing about the last topic?
Yeah.
Before we move to that?
Yeah.
I read a good book, and it's one of our recent reads, and it's this ADHD 2.0 book. And, there's this idea of connection. And so I as a business leader and project manager, I got to use this idea of connection. I need to connect with people, process information in order to make my project successful. I think that when you're parenting a neurodiverse child, it can feel really isolating, both for the child and for you. You're trying to understand the school system, medical appointments, behaviors, diagnosis, paperwork, your own emotions, but connecting with other parents and connecting with your child in the way that they need connection, I think that it's really important. So that's just, I wanted to make sure I mentioned that idea of connection. So now I can lead directly into the last question, if that's okay. Just based on this conversation, I'd like to see the Neurodiverse Collaborative Network become a place where families feel less alone. A place where people can find practical resources, but also real community. Because this journey is parents trying to figure out things a lot in isolation. You're Googling it at midnight when you can't sleep because you have a meeting in the morning and you don't know what the term means that they sent in the intake form. And you're trying to fill out an intake form after being exhausted, after working all day and helping your child get through their schoolwork and getting all the things done. And you're emailing schools and you're trying to understand services and wondering if you're doing enough. Is it working? So I hope that NDC helps families feel like they have a path. They have people beside them, and they have a place to express and get help for what they're experiencing. It's not just about information, it's translation, support, encouragement, and community.
Mm-hmm. Yes. For me, I hope the collaborative can provide families with a comfortable network to get meaningful resources, but beyond that, to engage with knowledgeable people and people actually living the experiences, neurodivergent individuals or families, directly supporting and caring for them. I think that the community aspect you mentioned, John, is critical. You're not in isolation. You have somewhere to go that people actually know and experience. And that has been a gap at times throughout many of our experiences. So yeah, we want to fill this in a more human way and help people move in the right direction for their themselves and their loved ones.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know. I think we all kind of talked about connection in different aspects, but just being able to have opportunities where people can kind of connect, like family networking events instead of like business networking, right? Like getting people to kind of talk and connect. And I feel like there's so much focus on information gathering. And when you need that, when you're in that stage of life where you're needing that information, that's important, that's key. But also to gather those social relationships too, that can be supportive, that can kind of help you walk through those stages of life if they've already kind of passed that point. Yeah,
for sure.
All right, what is one thing that you want other dads or parents in general to hear from this conversation today?
Can start. Acceptance, as we've mentioned several times, patience, consistency, just being there and being a support, whatever way, whatever role you need to play. And the role may change over time. It evolves, right? It's not exactly the same as your child grows. Striking the right balance and figuring out how to grow as a unit, as a family together so that everyone again can live this life we have the best way possible. And it's work, it's not easy, there's challenges that come, but I think just working in the most positive way that you can towards that goal is is the best approach that I can offer.
I was gonna say, you don't have to be a project manager to be good at helping your family and your child with autism, ADHD, neurodiverse, other diagnoses where you're getting supports. You don't have to be perfect. Stay engaged, keep showing up, keep listening, ask a lot of questions, keep learning, keep believing in your child. Your presence as a dad matters more than you know, and your voice matters.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the Neurodiverse Collaborative podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. You can also connect with us at neurodiversecollab.net to learn more about our community, resources, and events. I'm Jill Triffo, and I look forward to connecting with you next time.